In George Orwell's 1984, the territory of Oceania is vast, and with such a huge diversity of peoples and cultures, it seems unlikely that all of these people would just meekly submit, even decades into the despotic regime of the party. However, today I discuss a possible scenario, nothing less than a full-scale continental rebellion against the rule of Big Brother. Welcome to 1984 Law, and today we consider the feasibility of rebellion originating from the southwest against Oceania. Could South America be the hotspot for rebellion against the party? Before getting into this scenario, let's briefly recap what we know about Oceania itself, for those newer to the world of 1984. Oceania is a transcontinental totalitarian empire, having initially formed from the amalgamation of the United States and the British Empire, and then incorporating all of South America and other territories too. On the map, Oceania is perhaps the most impressive power, its domain stretching the breadth of the Earth, while its superstate rivals in Eurasia and East Asia are confined to the Eurasian continent. However, more skeptical readers and listeners may naturally wonder that, given the sheer enormity of the territory, as well as the diversity of peoples and cultures, even after decades of party rule, doesn't it seem unlikely that one power could hold absolute power for so long? In Universe, Goldstein's book does attempt to explain how the party maintains its iron rule. The administrators, that is, the rulers of each province, are always drawn from that province so that no one part feels under the heel of a distant capital or somehow colonized. However, I put it to you all that the exception here seems to be the southwest. The elephant in the room here, though, is the language barrier. We know that English, or Old Speak, is the primary de facto language of most of Oceania's provinces, Oceania itself essentially being the unification of the Anglo-sphere. Newspeak is the official language, but given its basically shortened English, this does raise an obvious problem and a potential gateway to how the peoples in South America could indeed feel like a conquered folk, being ruled by an alien majority. Incidentally, this may be another piece of evidence to suggest that the party's estimation of their territorial control is likely overinflated, if not an outright lie. Check out the video on the possibility that Britain is the only part of Oceania that actually is Oceania. If we assume that the language barrier is a problem, then we do have the unifying influence of Spanish as a language and differing cultures set against an Anglo-sphere ruling empire. Another issue of worry for the party is keeping the continent adequately garrisoned. If we assume there is a particular dissension given this reality, then could the party really afford to recruit personnel from and arm large portions of this populace? All of this seems very interesting, and it's certainly pleasurable to think that some kind of Che Guevara figure leads a guerrilla war against English-speaking INGSOC troops in the plains of Argentina, or launching hit-and-run attacks from the rainforests of the Amazon region. But just how realistic is this really when we consider the law? Well, a first strike against this theory is that it broadly assumes the party remains reactive rather than proactive. While it's true Spanish would almost certainly still be the lingua franca of the continent, given we're only a couple of decades into the party's rule, this need not be a point of dissent. The party is totalitarian, don't forget, and controls all information and propaganda. It would also be quite easy, preferable even, for the party in those regions to simply redraft all information in Spanish or Portuguese where appropriate. It's even conceivable that the party's total control over its population's movement, that the inner party there could create and maintain the illusion of unity with other regions. Spanish accepted as an official language equal to English, with their version of Newspeak a shortened Spanish version. With little to no freedom of movement, even within provinces, it would be very easy to insulate populations from the reality of minority status in the linguistic and cultural senses. I can imagine Big Brother's speeches beaming through South American telescreens in fluent Spanish, perfectly adapted by their respective ministries of truth. Perhaps outer party members, just like Winston, edit their Times articles' equivalents in Spanish or Portuguese. The travel element of all this is quite important. Very few, if any, non-party members would likely ever leave their town or small area to experience the reality that most of the rest of Oceania is English-speaking, and in truth, an Anglo-empire of sorts. So this avenue for feelings of alienation is simply off-limits for the vast majority of the population there. In fact, even the outer party will very rarely travel far within their provinces, let alone into others. The only class who does seem to do this, probably with regularity, are inner party members. We do know, for example, that Jones, Aronson and Rutherford were photographed in New York for a party function, and that inner party members even have access to helicopters too, which may suggest travel between provinces is fairly common. Apart from the proportionately small numbers of inner party members, who are all South Americans themselves, the outer party too will be entirely drawn from native populations, meaning that linguistic and cultural cross-contamination between oceanic provinces is very minimal. Even if the official language was English Newspeak, even this may not be a problem for the educated party branches, who could learn or already do speak English. Even if this was a potential issue of grievance for outer party members, since they're the most watched and brutalised group of society, any dissent arising from them, on this or any other basis for that matter, is easily suppressed. Most orthodox Latin party members would almost certainly always employ doublethink to enable them to accept the party reality that they are obviously part of an Anglo-empire, given the presence of this foreign official tongue, but they're also not too, or that this linguistic minority status just doesn't matter that much. As for the proles of the continent, the party doesn't particularly care about them or even worry that they could revolt. The only way this could happen, perhaps, is if led by the outer party, which cannot act collectively anyway, or even on a small scale without quickly being crushed by the fort police there. As we've already noted too, this assumes the proles would be broadly aware of such a linguistic imbalance, or that they care or see it as an issue. The Latin proles, like their cousins elsewhere in Oceania, are also just as propagandized in their own languages, likely spoken to by BB and Goldstein speaking perfect Spanish or Portuguese. Another crazy thought could be that a region's particular language is the official language, or at least that's what they believe. We know that the party has total control over information, so would it be that difficult to condition the prole population to believe their tongue is the official one, or at least used on an equal basis? So there it is, why I think this obvious avenue for resentment and rebellion is not really a problem. But what do you think? Is there another region or reasons part of the Oceanic Empire could revolt? Is South America still vulnerable to influence by the agents of Goldstein? Write your thoughts and objections in the comments. If you enjoyed this latest video, then also consider dropping it a like, as this lets Big Brother YouTube know not to consign 1984 lore to the algorithmic memory hole. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.